This week I took the very first slab that I ever milled up and turned it into these beautiful 2 pieces of furniture. One is a little end table for my friend and videographer Justin, and the other is a small bench for myself. A great thing about this project is one great length of slab can make multiple items. Or if you have a short spare piece that's too beautiful or sentimental to throw away, then this is something easy but functional to use it for. Let me show you the process. I had traveled to Nashville to help my friend Greg Pennington with a porch project, and while I was loading down the vehicle with tools, I threw in a slab of mesquite since Greg mentioned he had never seen it before.
So there's gonna be bench.
Then I figured if he was going to be working on something after hours, I'll pack myself a slab to work alongside him. For me, I have been holding on to my very first slab to ever come off my giant bandsaw mill, which is a piece of pecan. Now, I already knew what I wanted to make with it because since the first time of going to Greg's on my first chair making course, I fell in love with these cute live edge benches sprinkled and used all around his shop. I'd wanted one of those benches, so I started by picking the section of slab to make my seat from and also Justin's top for his table. Next was to plane down the faces. Justin's piece went pretty typical where the majority of marks were removed on both faces. However, on mine, after removing most of the marks on one face, Greg suggested we stop or it would make the board too thin. So on the center, I have marks remaining, but I don't particularly mind because it is the first marks I ever made with my bandsaw mill. Then on the bottom, it's just left completely rough. Moving into the workshop area, I had my 2 pieces where I started laying out the leg position. 3 legs on Justin's end table and 4 on my bench. Greg also was laying out his 4 legs on the piece of mesquite. To give you a little backstory here, I went to Nashville to help Greg build a porch, but the first day was nothing but rain. So we were keeping ourselves busy with this project. He went through the process to build a mesquite bench and I followed along with my piece of pecan. The first step is to drill the holes, which is at a compound angle. And I used Greg's very savvy but simple 2-part laser setup to get these angles drilled in correctly. And look how hard this pecan is. There is so much heat and smoke. Makes for some pretty shots though, and in person, some really nice smells. Once the holes were drilled, now I could perfect them to their actual size and correct taper with a reaming tool. See, the drill bit makes a nice, even, and straight hole, but the goal is to have the leg's tenon fit snugly into this hole, and the tenon on the leg has a small taper. This reaming tool cuts in that taper on the seat perfectly. You just need to have your legs nearby to test fit for. And in this case, since Greg is a chair maker and has lots of spindles around, we had a sample spindle to test fit. As long as that tenon is correct, that's what you need. You're looking for it to punch out through the bottom, or actually what will be the top. Next, we started working on cleaning up some of the edges and profiles. I decided to leave the live edge bark on mine. I mean, it will eventually fall off, but I'll be applying some epoxy to it whenever I get back to Texas to preserve it as long as possible. Greg went ahead and scraped his off. So he had all 4 edges to refine and shape, but I only had my 2 exposed ends. And I just wanted something that would feel nicer than a sharp 90 degree when I sat down and put my hands on it. So I tackled it first with a mallet and chisel and just tried knocking the top off. It didn't work all that well because pecan is so hard. So next I switched to a draw knife and created an easy chamfer on both the top and the bottom. To do that, pick a dimension, I just eyeballed it, then use your finger as a fence against the edge of your wood and drag it along to make the mark on your 2 perpendicular faces. And this gives you a visual reference to use a draw knife or any other wood removing tool of your choice to take that material away and come out with an even and nice looking bevel. Now, since I have bandsaw marks in the center of my slab, I moved to cleaning those up a little bit. The goal here wasn't to take them completely away, because I do love them, but to soften the feel of them slightly so that they weren't so rough. I did this with a Travisher. After it's all said and done, I think the marks blend in so nicely with the bark inclusions and natural knots in the slab, and I love the story that they tell. Okay, and now it was leg turning time. Well, legs and stretchers. For mine, I have 4 legs and 3 stretchers. Then for Justin, he needs 3 legs and 2 stretchers. I'm not a very experienced turner. I can do it, but I'm very slow, and often my pieces come out looking like a newborn baby's chubby arm. But still, I of course wanted to tackle my own parts, but Greg volunteered to do Justin's. And it is worth noting that Greg got both his set, Justin's set, and cleaned his entire shop in the time it took me to make mine. But hey, it is not a race. It's about having fun making some sawdust. For my parts, Greg already had a lot of dried maple blanks, so that's what I pulled from. The reason you want to use something dried is so that when you assemble it, it won't drastically move on you. If you use something wet, then as it dries, it will shrink and your joints will become loose. I went for a simple shape, something called a cigar leg, while Greg got a little bit more fancy for Justin's and did what is called a double bobbin leg. And he also made his from cherry, which turned out looking stunning. After test fitting the legs into place, we got out the longer drill bit and started punching some holes. These holes will receive the stretchers and make a rock solid base once things are connected. After the holes in the legs are punched, then a hole needs to be drilled in the shorts stretchers. This step always fascinates me. See, the hole needs to be drilled perfectly perpendicular to the stretcher. And to achieve this, chair makers use a mirror technique where they will set up a mirror to face them. They will also have a 90-degree square in sight so that in the mirror, as the person is drilling, you can set the square where it will be used as an indicator on how straight your drill bit is. So if this is where the square is and this is where your drill bit is, if you're watching that mirror, you'll be able to very quickly and easily tell if you start tilting. However, the other angle you need to watch for is this one. Isn't that system so neat? All right, and now it was assembly time. You can see Greg sitting on his mesquite bench. He just glued it up, and now it was my turn. If you're building a piece of furniture, then hide glue is a great choice. It not only has a long open time, but it's also reversible should you ever need to replace a part or refinish the entire thing. It's at this point where it starts coming together very quickly, one piece at a time. Now, don't freak out if you flip it over and the leg isn't touching the bench. The legs are left a little long at the start so that there's room to level them up after they're wedged in place.
Is it okay that that leg isn't touching?
Yeah, we'll cut the legs.
Gotcha.
But thanks. For wedges, you can go with just about any choice of wood, but I wanted walnut so that they would contrast with my light body and base. These also go in with hide glue, but if you ever wedge something, then only apply glue to one face and not both. Then you can use a ball peen hammer and it won't provide as much bounce back when you drive these home. Okay, and now we can take care of that airball leg Justin was worried about earlier. There's a very simple tool that holds a pencil, will reference off the top of a workbench, and can be set to any set amount. After making all 4 marks, I used a pull saw to slice and dice, which made my bench sit nice and flat. Yeah, I love it when things sit level. Last thing to do, while at Greg's at least, was to remove the top and use a flush trim saw to cut off the excess leg tenon and the wedges. Ow! Yeah! Ugh, I love it. I absolutely love this pecan coloring. I love the characters these specific pieces have in them, and I love making something with my first slab. And I love the day full of so much relaxing fun, building this with 2 close friends.
Perfect.
Chair maker perfect. It's always a special time in Greg's shop because he has a very magical place there. I have left you links in the description to the other projects I've had the pleasure of building in Greg's shop, as well as his current class schedule if you're interested in joining in some of the fun. As for their final homes, my bench lives in my living room and serves as a place for me to sit and put on my shoes. Justin uses his as an end table on his balcony, and he says it does a fabulous job at holding up whiskey. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something. If you have a live edge piece of wood, then I just love the versatility of these cute little benches. So I've left you links to everything down below, and I'll see you on my next project.
I love the fact, I'm trying to think what this looks like. An explosion. Maybe this is an F2 tornado. This is like the storm and coming down across the
Oh,
prairie.
totally. It looks like a big tornado with a pickup truck being
Yeah.
sucked up in it,
Yep.
and it's going to come down on the house. A little morbid.
Fast. That's one fast son of a bitch.